If we abstract from the optimism of the axiarchic view, its claims are these. Of the countless cosmic possibilities, one both has some very special feature and is the possibility that obtains. That is no coincidence. This possibility obtains because it has this feature. Other views can make such claims. This special feature need not be that of being best. Thus, on the all-worlds hypothesis, reality is maximal, or as full as it could be. Similarly, if nothing had ever existed, reality would have been minimal, or as empty as it could be. If the possibility that obtained were either maximal or minimal, that fact, we might claim, would be most unlikely to be a coincidence. And that might support the further claim that this possibility's having this feature would be why it obtained. Let us now look more closely at that last step. When it is no coincidence that two things are both true, there is something that explains why, given the truth of one, the other is also true. The truth of either might make the other true, or both might be explained by some third truth, as when two facts are the joint effects of a common cause. Suppose next that, of the cosmic possibilities, one is both very special and is the one that obtains. If that is no coincidence, what might explain why these things are both true? On the reasoning that we are now considering, the first truth explains the second, since this possibility obtains because it has this special feature. Given the kind of truths these are, such an explanation could not go the other way. This possibility could not have this feature because it obtains. If some possibility has some feature, it could not fail to have this feature, so it would have this feature whether or not it obtains. The all-worlds hypothesis, for example, could not fail to describe the fullest way for reality to be. While it is necessary that our imagined possibility has its special feature, it is not necessary that this possibility obtains. This difference, I believe, justifies the reasoning that we are now considering. Since this possibility must have this feature, but might not have obtained, it cannot have this feature because it obtains, nor could some third truth explain why it both has this feature and obtains. So, if these facts are no coincidence, this possibility must obtain because it has this feature. When some possibility obtains because it has some feature, its having this feature may be why some agent or some process of natural selection made it obtain. These we can call the intentional in evolutionary ways in which some feature of some possibility may explain why it obtains. Our worlds, theists claim, can be explained in the first of these ways. If reality were as good as it could be, it would indeed make sense to claim that this was partly God's work. But since God's own existence could not be God's work, there could be no intentional explanation of why the whole of reality was as good as it could be. So we could reasonably conclude that this way's being the best explained directly why reality was this way. Even if God exists, the intentional explanation could not compete with the different and bolder explanation offered by the axiarchic view. Return now to other explanations of this kind. Consider first the null possibility. This, we know, does not obtain, but since we are asking what makes sense, that does not matter. If there had never been anything, would that have had to be a brute fact, which had no explanation? That answer, I suggest, is no. It might have been no coincidence that, of all the countless cosmic possibilities, what obtained was the simplest and least arbitrary, and the only possibility in which nothing ever exists. And if these facts had been no coincidence, this possibility would have obtained because, or partly because, it had one or more of these special features. This explanation, moreover, could not have taken an intentional evolutionary form. If nothing had ever existed, there could not have been some agent or process of selection who or which made this possibility obtain. Its being the simplest or least arbitrary possibility would have been directly why it obtained. Consider next the all-worlds hypothesis, which may obtain. If reality is as full as it could be, is that a coincidence? Does it merely happen to be true that of all the cosmic possibilities, the one that obtains is at this extreme? As before, that is conceivable, but this coincidence would be too great to be credible. We can reasonably assume that, if this possibility obtains, that is because it is maximal, or at this extreme. On this maximalist view, it is a fundamental truth that being possible and part of the fullest way that reality could be is sufficient for being actual. That is the highest law governing reality. As before, if such a law governed reality, we could still ask why it did, but in discovering this law, we would have made progress. Here is another special feature. Perhaps reality is the way it is because its fundamental laws are, on some criterion, as mathematically beautiful as they could be. That is what some physicists are inclined to believe. As these remarks suggest, there is no clear boundary here between philosophy and science. If there is such a highest law governing reality, this law is of the same kind as those that physicists are trying to discover. When we appeal to natural laws to explain why some features of reality, such as the relations between light, gravity, space, and time are so, we are not giving causal explanations, since we are not claiming that one part of reality caused another part to be some way. What such laws explain, or partly explain, are the deeper facts about reality that causal explanations take for granted. There would be a highest law, of the kind that I have sketched, if some cosmic possibility obtained because it had some special feature. This feature we can call the selector.